Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam overview class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामी नित्यनामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone. So we are discussing from the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are discussing the very wonderful pastime of Bharat Maharaj, and we discussed last time how Bharat Maharaj, after he left his whole kingdom and he went to a forest and of Pulha Ashram, where Pulha Ashram was, and he was doing his devotional service very nicely to such an extent that he reached the stage of bhava. But because he was attached, he became attached to a baby deer who was drowning in the water, and that's why he again fell down from this highest level of bhava to again taking new birth. And at the last moment of his life, we discussed how he became so very attached to this deer that he started neglecting his morning duties, his spiritual sacrifices, and everything. And he was just doing it for the namesake, just for artificial show. And one day, the deer did not return back after grazing. And this Bharat Maharaj, he became so very anxious that he went out. He was searching the deer, and in due course of time, he met with an accident and he was dying. At the last moment of his death, he remembered a deer and he became deer in the next life. But the beautiful nature of devotional service is Neha Vikramanashosti Yatra Vayo na Vidyate Salpam Vasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Those who are on the path of devotional service, even if they perform little bit of devotional service, that bhakti never goes waste. And Bharat Maharaj did not perform little. He was at the level of bhava. So he definitely remembered everything which he did, even in the deer body. So as a deer also, he was not very attached. He was completely detached, and he was thinking how I can now get out of this body and again render devotional service. So he did not stay with his mother. Then he went again to the Pulaha ashram, and he was always in association with the great devotees of the Lord, hearing the pastimes of the Lord. And in this way, doing all devotional service, even in the body, deer of the body, even in the body of this deer, while eating dry grass and the leaves and whatever was remaining, and all the while he was thinking of Paramatma, and in this way he waited for the death. After being there in the holy place, finally he gave up his body, and that is what we discussed till yesterday. So today we'll be discussing the ninth chapter of this fifth canto. The chapter is entitled The Supreme Character of Jad Bharata. So in this chapter it is described this Bharat Maharaj, who was the son of Lord Rishabhadev, who was born as a son of a Kshatriya in a very rich family. But because he was neglectful of his duties and because of his excessive attachment to this insignificant deer, he did not achieve success in his spiritual life. And ultimately, he was obliged to get a body of a deer. But even though he was in the body of deer, because of his strong devotional service, he remembered his past life. And in this way, he was born in a good Brahmana family. As Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Vijayate. Those who cannot perfect their lives, they take birth in the family of either rich people or a Brahmana or a devotee. So this Bharat Maharaj, he took birth in the family of a Brahmana, and this Brahmana, he was in the line of Angira Rishi, and he was a very, very devoted personality. He was having all his mind and senses under control. He was always studying all the Vedic literatures. He was performing all the Vedic sacrifices. He would do all the charity. He was satisfied, always content within himself, gentle, learned. Actually, he was a self-realized soul. Always he was remaining in trance. These are the characteristics of the Brahmana in whose family, in whose home, this Bharat Maharaj took birth after this dear body. So this Brahmana, he had two wives. First wife had 9 progeny, and all these 9 sons, they were as qualified as himself. And from the second wife, he had twins, a male and a female. And male was Jad Bharat. So Bharat Maharaj, when he became a deer and then he took birth ultimately in the family of a Brahmana, he remembered his all the previous 3 lives by the mercy of the Lord. And therefore, as a result, he was very, very cautious and he was very, very afraid of association of non-devotee relatives and friends. Swajan Sangat, you know. So he was very, very fearful because all his friends and all his relatives, although they were Brahmanas, but still they were not devotees of the Lord. And therefore, this Bharat Maharaj, he was very careful not to associate with them. That is the beginning, one of the beginning limbs of devotional service, association of devotees and avoiding the association of non-devotees. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpa niyamagraha janasangascha laulyamcha shadbir bhakti vinashyati. Rupa Goswami says in Upadeshamrit that 6 things they destroy bhakti: over endeavoring, over accumulating, and talking all the nonsense gossip of the mundane world, and then atyahara prayashascha prajalpa and niyamagraha, doing things just for the sake of doing, not putting our heart in that, or neglecting things because you cannot understand the essence of why it has to be done. Then sangatyaga, janasangascha means association of worldly people, and laulyamcha, excessive greed. So all these things are very, very detrimental on the path of devotional service. And Bharat Maharaj, he knew all that because in the past life, he had practiced all the limbs of devotional service very nicely. So therefore, he was very, very fearful of obstruction to the progress in the path of devotional service. So in this way, he was always thinking of the Lord's lotus feet. He would always chant his glories, and he was always fearful of his fall down again. That's how a devotee, we have to be very, very careful, and we should have a healthy fear of Maya. Prabhupada would tell the devotees, problem is my disciples, they don't take Maya seriously. So therefore we should have a healthy fear of Maya. We have to be fearful that I should not go down again in the process of birth and death after this life. We don't remember our previous lives. That's why many times we don't take our Krishna consciousness so seriously, you know. Otherwise, if we come to know what all lives we have taken birth And this is not the first life. This may not be the first life in which we are practicing devotional service. We may have performed devotional service in our previous lives, and that's why we have got this process again. Or it may be possible that in this life we have got this by the mercy of devotees. But if we have got this process from the past lives devotional service, then we have to understand that we lost the chance to go back home, back to God in the last life. And in this life, again, we got mercy of devotees. Again, we got connected to the process of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, we have to be really, really careful. And that's why Bharat Maharaj, he was always very careful. So Bharat Maharaj, externally, he was behaving like a madman. He would behave like as if he is dull or blind or deaf. So that's how he manifested himself in the public. But his father, he was a very, very affectionate, kind-hearted Brahmana. And when he saw that this Jad Bharat, my son, is not fit for Grihastha ashram because he's not having proper mindset, because that's how Bharat Maharaj was showing to the outer world. Therefore, he performed the samskaras of Bharat, Jad Bharat, only up to Brahmacharya life. He did not get him married. And then, although Bharat Maharaj, Jad Bharat, he was unwilling to learn all the instructions of Brahminical culture, but still, his father was trying his best. His father was instructing him in cleanliness. He would teach him how to do Achman, but he would never learn that. So Chakravarti Thakur says that Jad Bharat was completely absorbed in devotional service, and therefore it was not necessary for him to execute the principles of fruitive activity. The person who is at the level of prema or bhava, who is a very advanced devotee, he is not supposed to follow all the basic rules and regulations of devotional service. Just like, you know, in the temple, a pure devotee of the Lord, those who come, just like Prabhupada disciples, sannyasis, although they are so very advanced, they are pure devotees of the Lord, but still they come for Mangalarti. Although Mangalarti is a regulation which was put by Prabhupada so that a sadhaka, like most of the devotees, they may, make their schedule regular. But those who are pure devotees, they're always chanting the names of the Lord. One sannyasi, so his servant, he uh, generally he would give breakfast to this devotee sannyasi in the morning by 7:30. One day, the door of this sannyasi did not open. So then this servant, he did not even knock the door because he was thinking maybe he's taking rest. After an hour or so, so this very senior sannyasi disciple of Prabhupada, he came out and he said, "You didn't offer me breakfast." So this servant said, I was thinking because your lights are off, so you must be taking rest. So this Prabhupada disciple, sannyasi, said, actually I was chanting my rounds. And that's what I do many times when my lights are closed, lights are off. So that is the example of a pure devotee. He does not have to follow all the regulative principles because his mind is always absorbed in Krishna. So therefore, Prabhupada is writing that, and Chakravarti Thakur writes that advanced devotee like Jad Bharat does not have to follow all these, regulative principles of fruitive activity. So therefore, another thing we should have to understand is we should not behave artificially as a pure devotee and be callous to worldly responsibilities, saying that, okay, I don't need all that, I have already transcended all these things, but we have to understand if we are not pure, then all the external rules and regulations we have to very diligently follow. Otherwise, if we try to be what we are not, then we will destroy our own devotional service. As Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he writes in one bhajan, Vaishnav K, you know, in that he writes that, you know, if devotees, they want to go to a solitary place and do bhajan, that is just for name and fame. So that's how we have to be really careful to not imitate the pure devotees, but follow the instructions of the pure devotees. One time, one disciple of Prabhupada, he went to him and said, Prabhupada, I don't want to do all these services in the temple. I just want to chant 24 hours a day. Please give me Babaji initiation. I want to go to Radha Kund. So Prabhupada said, this is not for you. You'll not be able to maintain it. But he was so very insistent. Prabhupada said, okay, you can go. And he was there in the Radha Kund chanting the names for long hours. It remained, stayed only for 6 months, and then he left. So therefore we have to be really careful, that we have to be very, very diligent in performing our devotional activities, all the rules and regulations. So this Bharat Maharaj, Jad Bharat, he acted like a fool before his father. You know, he would perform actions in reverse order so that his father would stop instructing him. So his father told him, you should wash your hands after evacuating. After passing stool, you should wash your hands. But what he would do, he would first wash hands and then he would go and pass. And then his father was trying to teach him Gayatri Mantra for 4 months. But still, he was unsuccessful. Jad Bharat, he was not ready to learn anything. His father taught him all the brahmachari activities, you know, cleanliness, swadhyaya, all the rules and regulations, service to the guru, performing the fire sacrifice. But he failed in all his attempts. So after doing attempt for a long, long time, you know, his father, he left his body because of old age. Then when the father died, the mother of Jad Bharat, she also entered the funeral pyre along with her husband and departed for Pati Loka. Then after that, you know, the nine brothers of this Jad Bharata, they, although they were very learned in Vedas, but they were not spiritually enlightened. There is a difference between a Brahmana and a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is one who knows the supreme absolute truth. Brahmana may or may not know the supreme absolute truth. So these 9 stepbrothers, they were not spiritually enlightened. And therefore, they considered Bharata, Jad Bharata, to be dull, and they could not understand the exalted position of their brother. And after this, their father died, they abandoned all the attempts to educate Bharat. So therefore, we have to be really careful. You know, we should not be judgmental, seeing the external behavior of the devotees many times. As it is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyena Bujhai. We should never ever judge our devotees' actions. And if we think, okay, this devotee is not doing what he's supposed to do, then, and we actually desire to help him, then it is better to go to some superior personality rather than judging ourselves. So this is a very, very important concept in association of devotees. Otherwise, we may destroy our devotional service. As Rup Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrit, Drishtai Swabhavajaniter Vapushascha Doshair Na Prakritattvamiha Bhakta Janasya Pashyet Gangam Bhasamna Khalu Budbudupena Pankai Brahma Dravatvam Apagachati Nira Dharmai. So there Rup Goswami says, Drishtai Swabhava Janite, because of the particular nature, if we see the dosha in a particular devotee, then this is a very, very neophyte mentality. Because a primary lakshan, the mukhya lakshan of a devotee is he is practicing Krishna consciousness. and everything else is a secondary lakshan or gauna lakshan. So we have to see the primary symptom of a devotee always first, and then all the other things should be looked after in a secondary way. So this is a very, very important concept in association of devotees. We should not see, okay, sometimes devotees say, I think, outside non-devotees, they behave many times better than devotees. Why should I stay with them? Why should I stay with devotees? Better to stay with non-devotees. Because devotees, they don't have proper culture. Many times they don't speak properly. So then we have to be really careful. Chakravarti Thakur writes in one of the purports that the primary lakshan of a devotee is he is a practitioner of Krishna consciousness. And rest all things should be looked secondary. They should not be given much importance, although we should not associate with those devotees, but we should never ever disrespect them. So therefore, when Jad Bharat, he was not treated properly, he was not protesting. He did not even protest. And Shukdev Goswami says, when degraded people who are like two-legged animals, they addressed Jad Bharat as mad, dull, deaf, and dumb. He neither protested or neither tried to convince them. And then these brothers, they would give him all sorts of heavy work. They would engage him in the work by force, and they would use this Jad Bharat as a slave. They would give some remuneration, and then they would give whatever is remaining in the house to eat. But Jad Bharat, he was happy, and he would eat whatever would come of its own accord. He would never eat for sense gratification. He would never eat for enjoying, because he was liberated. In our conditioned life, in our conditioned uh, position, if we do not get proper food, then we become disturbed. Even if we are devotees, if we don't get proper prasad, we become disturbed. Because many times we don't eat prasad just because it is mercy of the Lord. One time Saraswati Thakur, he asked, one person was honoring prasad, are you honoring prasad? Are you eating prasad? Or prasad is honoring or eating you, enjoying you? Are you enjoying prasad, or prasad is enjoying you? So that is the level of a pure devotee. So Jada Bharat, he was not attached to the externals. Whatever he would get, he would eat. He was unaffected in his consciousness. And because he was unaffected by the dualities of the world, he was very, very strong. That is another thing we have to learn. The more we become disturbed by the things and the problems of the world, the more we become weak. The emotional things, they affect ultimately the physical things in our life. So therefore, Jada Bharati was very, very strong, because he was not disturbed by all the external things. And this Jada Bharat, he would not keep his body properly, he would not maintain, and he was always covered with dirt. So therefore, his spiritual effulgence, his spiritual knowledge, it was covered. It was like a gem which was covered by a dirt. And many times he would wear only a loin cloth, and he was having a sacred thread which was blackish, from white it had turned black. When ignorant people, they would insult him, he would not care for them. He would not even reply back or retaliate. He wandered here and there. So therefore, a very important thing to understand here, one who experiences the spiritual bliss of love of God within, who is enjoying the rasa of relationship with God, he has no need to prove his greatness before the materialistic people. He is satisfied. And we hear the story of Rup Sanatana Goswami when they were in Vrindavan. So a scholar called Rup Narayan, he came, and he was going to all the scholars, and he was showing them a Vijay Patra, and he was asking, either you debate with me debate with me or you sign this letter. And then he came to know that the greatest scholars of Vrindavan are Rup Sanatan Goswami. So he went to them. They went to him. This person, he went to Rup Sanatan Goswami and he asked Rup Sanatan Goswami that I heard you are greatest scholar in Vrindavan. I want to debate with you. So Rup Goswami said, why do you want to debate with me? You know, what do you want? You want you want a signature on this? Okay, I'll give. And he gave signature to Rup Narayan and he happily went away. And then Jeev Goswami ultimately defeated him, and then Rupa Goswami chastised Jeev Goswami that you are not supposed to be in Vrindavan because you want to prove your supremacy. So therefore, the person who is experiencing the spiritual bliss of love of God, he does not need to prove himself to the outside world. So this Jad Bharata, he was completely satisfied. He would work only for food, otherwise he would not work. He would be just meditating on the Supreme Lord. And seeing this, his brothers, his step-brothers, they would engage him in some agricultural work. And although he did not know how to work in the fields, but still he was working. And in the remuneration of his work, what they would give him some broken rice, some oil cakes, sometimes a chaff of rice. They would sometimes give him warm eaten grains, or they would give him burnt grains that stuck to the bottom of the pot. But Jad Bharat, he very gladly accepted everything as if it were nectar. That is the position of a self-realized devotee. Sukham indriyakam daitya dehinam dehayoginam sarvatra labhyate daiva yatha dukkham ayatnatah. Prahlad Maharaj is telling to his friends, oh my dear friends, do not endeavor for sense gratification because it is available in every species of life. Therefore, tat prayaso na kartavyo yatha ayuvaya param na tatha vindate shemam mukunda charanambujam. So then he would say to all his friends that therefore one should not endeavor for happiness. The life which you have got, don't endeavor for sense gratification. Endeavor for Mukunda Charanambujam, endeavor for attaining the lotus feet of the Lord. So therefore we have to understand how much to endeavor. As Rupa Goswami says, the prayas, atyahar and prayas. Prayas means over endeavoring or over accumulating things. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes there are 5 types of prayas. One is karma prayas, that is endeavor for sense gratification. One is jnana prayas, learning more and more mundane knowledge or some philosophy of the impersonalism. Yoga prayas means endeavor for mystic siddhis. Vairagya prayas is also prayas. That means practicing, trying to develop renunciation. But Srimad Bhagavatam always have said that renunciation develops automatically in a person who is performing devotional service. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Ashu Vairagya. Vairagya automatically develops. We can see our own lives. The day we started practicing Krishna consciousness and the day now, we have developed lots of renunciation. We may not even realize how much we have given up. But the most difficult thing to give up is pratishtha. And this pratishtha prayas is a very, very strong, very, very, strong attachment to give up. Although as a devotees, we say, I am servant of the servant of the servant. I don't want any respect. But still the desire for respect does not go. But a devotee, he is self-satisfied. He does not endeavor for any of these things. And Prabhupada writes that this is the platform of Parama Hamsa. And he quotes Chaitanya Charitamrita, says, Dvaite Bhadra Bhadra Gayan Sab Mano Brahma, Ei Bhal Ei Band Sab Brahma. So people, they see duality in this world because of the attachment to this material world. And therefore, Prabhupada writes that Jad Bharata, he was doing these four things. Firstly, he was determined to finish his business in this material world. So these four things are very, very important for a practicing devotee to endeavor for. First, one should be determined to finish his business in this material world. Second, not at all caring for the world of duality. Third, completely acting in Krishna consciousness. Fourth, oblivious to all the happiness and distress. So that was the consciousness of Jad Bharat. So then one day, a leader of dacoit was there. He was desiring a son, and he was offering Bhadrakali, a dull man. It is described Purusha Pashu. Purusha Pashu means a very dull man. So he wanted to offer a man who was a very dull in sacrifice to goddess Kali, Bhadrakali. But actually, the man who was intended to be sacrificed, he escaped somehow. So this leader, he ordered his followers to find him. So the followers of this dacoit king, they were wandering here and there, and they found this Jad Bharata. This Jad Bharata was guarding the paddy field. So they, just by seeing Jad Bharata, and they understood that now this is the uh, perfect person to be sacrificed as an animal. Because Jad Bharat was looking as if he was a dull man, a blind, deaf, madman. And they arrested Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat, because he was completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord, he did not even protest. Although he was being brought for slaughter, but Jad Bharat did not protest. So Prabhupada writes, it should be noted that these people, they never sacrifice an intelligent man before the goddess. Bharat Maharaj appeared to be deaf and dumb, yet he was the most important man in the world and most intelligent man. He was very strong. Prabhupada writes, Jad Bharat was very strong and he could have easily avoided being bound by the ropes, but he did not do anything. Why? Because he completely depended on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada quotes a version of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. मारो भी राखो भी जो इच्छा तुहार नित्य दासे प्रति तुआधिकार. So that is the consciousness of a pure devotee. So then these dacoits, they brought Jad Bharata to the place where sacrifice was about to be done. And then according to their own concocted rituals, the dacoits, it was not mentioned in scriptures. They just made their own ritual. So they bathed Jad Bharat, then dressed him and then decorated him with ornaments and then put chandan and the sandalwood pulp, and then they put garlands and then they put tilak on him, and then they offered him a wide variety of foodstuff to eat. And after eating Jad Bharat, they made him sat in front of Bhadrakali, and they were offering all the various articles to Bhadrakali, incense, lamps, garland, fruits, sprouts, and everything. And while doing so, they were singing prayers and songs, and they were sounding drums and bugles. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, the thieves and rogues, they devised their own process. They devised their own process for killing an animalistic man. The scriptures who are tamasic, they give instructions for sacrifice of an animal like goat or buffalo. But there is no mention of killing a man. However, a person may be dull, but he should never be sacrificed. But these dacoits, they were concocting their own rituals. So then, after doing everything, the head priest, he raised his sword and desiring to please Bhadrakali with the blood of Jad Bharata, he was about to cut the head of Jad Bharata. Even at this point, Jad Bharat did not retaliate. He was just sitting there, calm, composed, and peaceful. And therefore, in the next two, what happens after this? So Jad Bharata, as he's sitting, goddess Kali herself breaks apart the deity and jumps out of the deity to protect Jad Bharata. And this verse says why Jad Bharata should not be killed. Because dacoits, they were low-minded and envious. They were bound by the lower modes. They were doing it for their own sense gratification. And Jad Bharata, who was he? He was the best friend of everyone. He was a great devotee of the Lord. He was always absorbed in devotional service. He was a son of a good Brahmana. And goddess Kali, she understood that here is such a great devotee of the Lord. And therefore, she burst the deity's body and she came out of that. And she was there to protect Jad Bharata. So then after that, goddess Kali, when she came out of this deity, she was displaying very, very fearsome features. She had curved teeth, she had frowning brows, and her eyes were glowing reddish, and she had a very, very frightening body. She leaped out of this altar, and immediately she along with so many of her associates, they also came, and they started decapitating, beheading the rogues and the dacoits with the sword. And then it is mentioned she then drank along with her associates the hot blood that flowed out of the neck of all these dacoits as if it were liquor. And then after drinking this blood as if they were intoxicated, this goddess Kali and associates, they began to play with those heads, tossing them like balls. So therefore, it is very, very important to understand that great devotees, when they are troubled, even devatas cannot tolerate that. No one, including devatas, tolerate an offense to a devotee of the Lord, because the devotees are very, very dear to the demigods. Yap param ramasa sakshat triguna jiva sangitat bhagwantam vasudeva prapanna sapriyosime. So Lord Shiva is telling to Prachetas. So he's saying, because you all are devotees of the Lord, you all are very, very dear to me. So therefore, we have to be really careful not to do Vaishnava aparad, either physically is the last thing, even verbally or even mentally. We have to avoid it. And we have heard many times, it is like a hati mata aparad. If a mad elephant is allowed to enter a beautiful garden, the garden will be completely destroyed in a second. In few moments, it will be destroyed completely. So therefore, we have to be really careful, because the more we spend time in Krishna consciousness, we may think that I have become advanced and all these others, they have come just now, or they have come with me, but now I have become more advanced and they don't know what they are supposed to do. So then I should instruct them and I should correct them. And many times we even criticize devotees. So therefore, we have to be really careful that the Bhakti Lata Beej, which is there and which is growing very nicely so far, if we are not careful, we may destroy our Bhakti Lata Beej in a moment. So then it is described by Shukdev Goswami, says that when an envious person commits an offense to a pure devotee of the Lord, he is always punished in this way. Then somebody may ask, how was Jad Bharat undisturbed by all these things? How is it possible? Even if he was to be killed, how was he undisturbed? He was not showing anger to those who are even trying to kill him. Sukdev Goswami, understanding this feeling of Parikshit Maharaj, he says, it is no wonder, O Parikshit, it is no wonder that the highest devotees, those who are Bhagavat Paramahamsas, they are undisturbed, even if they are threatened, even if they have saved. And then he says, why they are undisturbed? Because he says five things. First, because they have severed the tight knot of bodily identification. Vimukta dehadi atma bhava sudrida hriday granthinam. Vimukta, they have become free from this hard knot of bodily identification. Secondly, they are friends of everyone. They are acting for welfare of every living entity. Sarva Sattva Suridatmanam. They are acting for the welfare of every living entity. Thirdly, they never contemplate harming anyone. They are nirvaira. And we have heard about Parikshit Maharaj himself in the first canto. Tiraskrita vipralabda shapta shipta hata api nasya tat pratikurvanti tad bhakta prabhavopihi. Sud Goswami is telling about Parikshit Maharaj that although he was cursed to die in 7 days, Parikshit Maharaj did not retaliate. Why? Because that is the nature of devotees. Tiraskrita, even if they are insulted. Vipralabdha, they are cheated. Shapta, they are cursed, even if they are tried to be killed. Shapta, shipta, hataha api. Na asya tat pratikurvanti. They never ever retaliate, even if they have the power to do so. Tad bhakta prabhavopihi. Durvasa Muni is telling about Amrish Maharaj. Aho ananta dasana mahattam drishtamadhyame kritagasopi yadrajan mangalani samihase. He says, O Lord, I have seen the glorious position of your devotees today. Ahananta dasana mahatvam, I have seen the glory of the devotees of Lord Vishnu. Drishtam adya, today I have seen. Kritagasopi yadrajan, I tried to kill him. I tried to kill Ambarish, but Mangalani Samihase. He is desiring for my welfare. That is a devotee. So devotee never contemplates harming anyone. Fourthly, why they can tolerate anything which is happening to them? Because they are always protected by the Lord. Even if the physical body may be destroyed, spiritual credits will always be protected by the Lord. And if Lord desires, he will of course protect our physical body also. As it is described, te deva siddha parigita pavitra gatha ye sadhavo samadrisho bhagavat prapanna tanopasidat harer gadaya bhigupta tesham vayam nacha vaya prabhavama dande. Yamraj is telling to Yamdutas, oh my sons, do not go near the devotees of Lord Vishnu. Why? These devotees of the Lord, they are glorified by Deva, Siddha, and Devtas and Siddhas and the Charanas and the sages. They are always glorifying the devotees of the Lord. Ye sadhavo, samadisho, bhagavat prapannaha. They are saintly people. They are equipoised. They are surrendered to the Lord. Therefore, what is the result of this? Tanopasidat harer, unke paas mat jaiye. Why? Gadaya Abhigupta, because Lord Vishnu is circumambulating around his devotees with Gada in his hand. Myself, even Brahma, even Shiva, they do not have any control over the devotees of the Lord. Even Parikshit Maharaj himself, he was saved when he was in the womb of his mother. Angushtamatram amalam spurtamaulinam apividarshanam shyamam taditavasasam achyutam paribhramantam ulkabham. He saw, somebody entered in the womb and he was a size of a thumb. He was wearing a yellow dhoti and he's revolving, circumambulating, protecting him. So that is the glorious position of a devotee. They are always protected by the Lord. And lastly, the devotee, because he has completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he has no fear. Narayan para sarve na kutaschana vibhyati Swargapavarga Narakeshu Api Tulyarth Darshinam. Lord Shiva is telling to Parvati about Chitraketu. Although Chitraketu Maharaj was cursed by Parvati to take birth as a demon, he was very calm, composed, peaceful. He folded his hands in front of Mother Parvati and he said, Mother, I was not desiring to criticize Lord Shiva, but if you desire so, I will very happily go and take birth as a demon. So therefore, the devotees, they are never, and they are not disturbed by any offense, even if they are threatened by death. So that is a glorious position of the devotee of the Lord. So this is the end of the 9th chapter. And then the 10th chapter begins, which is the discussion between Jada Bharata and Maharaj Rahugana. So Chakravarti Thakur writes that Jada Bharata, he showed mercy to various people in different ways. According to the nature, according to the modes a person is in, Jad Bharat, he responded accordingly. To those brothers and the neighbors, they were in the mode of passion. They were all fruitive activity. They were all fruitive workers. So Jad Bharata, he allowed them to take his darshan, and it's in this way he purified them. That is the glory of devotee of the Lord. Yesham samsparanat pumsham sadhyo shuddhanti vaigrihat kim punar darshana sparsha pada shauchashanadibhi. Parikshit Maharaj is telling to Shukdev Goswami, just by remembering the devotees, one gets purified. What to speak of if somebody gets a chance to see the devotees of the Lord, touch them, and wash their lotus feet. So therefore, Jar Bharat, he allowed his friend, his brothers, and his neighbors to see him so that they become purified. They were in the mode of passion. The leader of the dacoits, he was in the mode of ignorance. So then, how Jad Bharat showed mercy to him? He arranged for his liberation. This leader of the dacoit, Jad Bharat, he arranged for the liberation of the leader of the dacoit in the next life, because while dying, they saw Jad Bharat, and he saw goddess Kali. So that is the benefit, the leader of the dacoits got. And thirdly, when in this chapter we'll see when Jad Bharat, he met King Rahugana. So King Rahugana, he was in the mode of goodness. So when he met a person who is in the mode of goodness, he imparted the knowledge of Jnana and Bhakti. So this is how Jad Bharat, he behaved differently with different devotees, different personalities. So therefore, Shukdev Goswami begins with this chapter by describing that there was a king called Rahugana, and he was a ruler of Sindhu and Sauvir, and he was on his way to Kapila Ashram. He was being carried on the palanquin by the 4 palanquin bearers, but somehow one of them were not able to do that service. So there were only 3 remaining. So they needed an extra one. And then they saw this great devotee. Shukdev Goswami says, Mahanubhava. They did not see Jad Bharat as a great devotee, but Shukdev Goswami is saying that this palanquin bearers, they saw a great devotee, Jad Bharat. He was very strong and stout. So then they forcibly engaged him in carrying this palanquin. He was not ready. Although he was not fit for such a work, because he was such a great devotee. Generally, should serve a devotee, not take service from him. So they should not have engaged Jad Bharat in carrying the palanquin, but they did so anyways. So then, as Jad Bharat was also carrying this palanquin along with 3 others, so Jad Bharat, because he was a devotee, was compassionate to every living entity. So he was stopping after walking every 3 feet. And because of this, the palanquin was shaking. And why Jad Bharat was doing so? Because there were ants on the path. He was trying to avoid them. So therefore, Prabhupada writes in the purport that all the living entities have a certain duration of life. We should not kill any living entity unnecessarily, or we are stopping their progressive path of evolution. They will not be evolved to the next higher species of life. Again, they will have to take birth in the same species. So when this palanquin was shaking, the palanquin carriers, they became afraid because they were thinking, oh my God, king will now punish us. So then, expecting this, they themselves told the king, oh king, we are not negligent, we are doing our duty properly, but this new man, he is not doing properly. He is not walking swiftly, and he is stopping at every step. So therefore, he is responsible. Prabhupada writes an interesting purport. He says, whenever a Shudra and a Brahmana Vaishnava are combined, if you put a Brahmana and a Shudra together in one service, there will be complete imbalance in the execution of duties, because only like-minded people should be put together in one service. So then Rahugana, he acknowledged, okay, that these servants of mine, they are saying right, because Shukdev Goswami says that Rahugana was also very knowledgeable person. He had also learned from the great sages. Although he was such a great personality, he was learned in the scriptures, but because he was a king, so he had a sense of kingship. Kshatriya nature was there. Because of that Kshatriya nature, his knowledge was covered by this Kshatriya nature, that is a mode of passion. And therefore, Rahugana became angry on Jad Bharat. And therefore, Prabhupada writes there, this shows the distinction between Rajogun and Tamogun, Rajogun and Sattvagun. Jad Bharat, he was in Sattvaguna. And we'll see how, even though he was chastised, he did not become angry. And King Rahugana, because he was in the mode of passion, he became immediately angry when he saw some discrepancy in his service. So then King Rahugana, he became very angry and he said, you must be fatigued, in a very, very sarcastic tone. Now he's saying, he says, you must be fatigued from carrying the palanquin alone, for so long, so far you are carrying this palanquin. You must be fatigued. And then he said, you must be old and unhealthy without strong limbs. And then he said, are your fellow carriers not cooperating with you? So these are the three accusations which Rahugana, he tells Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat, now just see his response. Jad Bharat, he was a very knowledgeable, great devotee of the Lord, but his spiritual power was covered, just like a fire is covered by ashes. So he completely remained unaffected because he had no conception of I and mine. Whatever king said, all those words, they were either for the body or they were for the person Jad Bharata. But this Jad Bharat, he realized, I am not this body, I am spirit soul. So therefore, he was completely detached. So Chakravarti Thakur writes that by taking the opposite meaning of the words, actually, king criticized Bharata. He actually said, you are not tired because you have just started carrying the palanquin. Why are you behaving like this? You are not tired. Just abhi shuru to kiya hai, You have just started carrying the palanquin and you are not doing it properly. And I can see you are well nourished. You have strong limbs. You are young. And then he said, are you showing deceit to me by saying that I cannot carry the palanquin in a regular way with all these other carriers? So therefore, he criticized Jad Bharata. Even after all the criticism, Jad Bharata, he continued carrying the palanquin without saying a word. Now, after this, When Rahugana, after he spoke all that, he stopped, and then Jadabharat continued carrying the palanquin, but still Rahugana noticed that the palanquin is still shaking. He became very angry now. So earlier he had said three things. He had said, are you old? Are you tired? And are you not able to are all these people not cooperating with you? Now he says, are you dead despite the life within your body? So now he's saying, are you dead? And do you not know that I am your master? You are disregarding me. You are not carrying my order. And therefore he says, for this disobedience, I shall now punish you just as Yamraj. So Rahugana, Shukdev Goswami says that Rahugana, he was under the bodily conception of a king. Naradev Abhimanam. He had a proud that I am the king of this world. So therefore he was completely covered in the mode of ignorance and passion. And secondly, he did not know the glory of a devotee of the Lord. So Jad Bharata, he was a topmost devotee of the Lord, and he was carrying Supreme Lord in his heart. Jad Bharata, so Shukdev Goswami is giving a comparison between who was Rahugana and who was Jad Bharata. Rahugana was completely in bodily conception. He was thinking, I am king. He was thinking in himself as learned, Pandit Maninam. And Jad Bharata, he was thinking himself to be a very humble personality. He was a friend of all. He was a topmost devotee of the Lord, and therefore he smiled. Jad Bharata, after he heard all this, he smiled and he spoke. Now he started speaking to King Rahugana. So now, because Rahugana thought himself as very learned, and that's why he spoke all these, sarcastic comments, Jad Bharat wanted to show mercy on him. He wanted to defeat him with the knowledge. So now Jad Bharata starts replying to King Rahugana. So first he replies to the comment that he were fatigued. So he says, I am not this body. I am a soul. Your words are actually true. They are not sarcastic, because the load belongs to the body and not to the soul. Therefore, I am not tired. My body may be tired because I am not attached to the body. I am not fatigued. So then he replies to the second comment of Rahugana. He says, Rahugana had said that you are not strong and stout. Jad Bharat says, actually, the bodily designations do not belong to the soul. Fat or thin, happiness, distress, hunger, thirst, fear, disagreement, agreement, all these things, they belong to the body. But I am not this body. So therefore, I am not strong and stout. I am free from all these misconceptions. Prabhupada quotes a bhajan of Narottam Das Thakur, Deha smriti nahi yaar, samsar bandhan kahatar. Those who are not attached to this body, they are not conditioned by this world. Then he replies to the third question. Third comment of King Rahugana was, he said, you are dead. Yeah, you are dead while alive. Although you are living, you are behaving like a dead. So Jad Bharat said, actually, this is the case everywhere. Because everything material has a beginning and an end. My body is a matter. It has a beginning and has an end. And then he replies to the argument of Rahugana that Rahugana, he said, I am your master. So Jad Bharat says, today you are king, I am your master, I am your servant. Tomorrow the positions may change. You may become master, you may become servant, I may become master. Who is master? Who is servant? It is all temporary. So therefore, he says, okay, nevertheless, if you think you are a king, what can I do for you? So then, after saying this, he replies to the point of treating when King Rahugana said, I'll punish you for being mad. You are acting like a mad person. I'll punish you. Jad Bharat says, what is the use of punishing a mad person? You know, it is like, beating a dead horse. What is the need? What will you gain by punishing a mad person? Prabhupada writes, everyone in this world is working like a madman. Everybody is thinking, this is me, this is my body, these are my friends, relatives, and I have to take care of them. And therefore, Prabhupada gives the example of a thief who steals, he's caught, he's beaten, and again he's relieved, again he commits thievery. So this is a sign of madness. Despite repeated punishment, the thief does not give up the habit of stealing. Therefore, that punishment is useless. That is the question actually Parikshit Maharaj asked in the beginning of the 6th canto. What is the use of atonement? People, they do some sinful activity and then they do some atonement, and after getting purified they again do the same activity. It is like a manye kunjara shauchavat. It is like a elephant taking bath. Elephant takes bath thoroughly, and then after coming out he again puts dirt all over his body. What is the use of all that? So therefore, Jad Bharat is saying that even if I am mad, what is the use of punishing a madman? And then he says, therefore, O King Rahugana, if you want, I'll serve you. Now, Jad Bharat, what is his attitude? He tolerated all the harsh words of Rahugana and he replied to them very properly. So therefore, Jad Bharat, although he was such an intelligent, learned, great devotee of the Lord, he was acting in such a humble way. He was not considering himself to be a great devotee of the Lord, and he just agreed to suffer the results of his own past karma. That's what he was thinking. So then after that, now after hearing all this from Jad Bharata, Rahugana, he realized who is this personality, because Rahugana, he was also having a deep faith in the topics of absolute truth. Because of the faith, he was qualified to hear the philosophy. So therefore, he gave up his pride as a king. He got down off his palanquin and he fell flat at the feet of Jad Bharata. He begged for forgiveness and he asked, please instruct me. So this faith in the spiritual subject matter is a very, very important thing. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. Those who have Shraddha, they get knowledge. And those who have knowledge, they beget faith. So it is a interconnected thing. It all starts with faith, and based on the initial faith, we get knowledge. And when we act according to that knowledge, our faith increases. So this is a cycle which goes on. So faith is the root of knowledge, and faith is the fruit of knowledge also. When we have faith, this is the root from where knowledge takes birth. And when you have knowledge, it gives faith as the fruit. So this is a devotional chain reaction. In the first canto also, Narad Muni tells what were the qualities of Narad Muni as a small boy, because of which he got mercy. He got such a high position as a Narada. Tasya me anuraktasya prashritasya hatainashah shraddhadanasya dantasya shraddhadanasya balasya dantasya anucharasya cha. So Narad Muni says, I had 5 qualities. Anurakta, I was completely attached to the devotees. Prashritasya, I was obedient. Hatainashaha, I was free from any sinful activity. Shraddhadanasya, I was having unflinching faith in the words of the spiritual teachers. Dantasya, I was sense controlled. Dantasya, Shraddhadanasya balasya dantasya anucharasya cha. I was a sincere follower. 6 qualities. So the faith is a beginning of spiritual life. Adav Shraddha tatah sadhu sanga, then bhajan kriya starts. So therefore faith, somebody asks, is faith a matter of choice or grace of God? Will I get faith by my own desire? If I choose, I'll get faith, or this faith is given by God. Actually, it is both. We may have little faith based on our past life karma, but when we choose to increase our faith, then God gives mercy. Krishna shows mercy. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. So therefore, those who have faith, they develop knowledge. Prabhupada writes, through the disciplic succession, the royal order was on the same platform as great saintly persons, Raja Rishi. So Rahugana, he was a Raja Rishi. So he had knowledge of spiritual life. He could understand this is not an ordinary person. So he surrendered and he asked, who are you, sir? You are moving around like an unknown person. Are you a learned Brahmana? Or are you the liberated saint Dattatreya? Whose disciple you are? Whose son you are? Where do you live? All these things he asks. He says, have you come to benefit us? Are you not Kapila or Narayan? Who are you? So Prabhupada writes, he says, Rahugana was accepting now Jad Bharat as Guru. And a Guru must prove his position not only by wearing sacred thread, but by advancing in spiritual knowledge. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, it is also significant that Rahugana asked Jad Bharata which family he belonged to. And Prabhupada says that there are two types of families. One is a family which is coming from the father, that is seminal tradition, and other is a disciplic succession. In either of the ways, one can be enlightened. Either in a Guru Shishya Parampara or the Parampara which is coming in the family. So now, after surrendering to Jad Bharata, he speaks this beautiful verse. Naham Vishanke Suraraja Vajran Natyarksha Yamasya Dandat Nagnyarka Sona Nilirvitta Pastrat Shanke Brisham Brahma Kulavamanat. He says, O Brahmana, I am not afraid of Sura Raj Vajran. I am not afraid of the thunderbolt of King Indra. Natyarksha Shulan. I am not afraid of the serpentine piercing trident of Lord Shiva. Nayamasya Dandat. I am not even afraid of the danda of Lord of Death, Yamraj. Na Agni, Ark, Soma, Anil. I am not afraid of fire, sun, moon, wind, or weapons of Kuvera. I am only afraid of one thing. Shanke Bhrisham Brahmakula Vamanat. I am only afraid of offending a Brahmana. So please forgive me and please instruct me. So Prabhupada in the purport, he focuses on this principle of Vaishnava Aparad. So in one of the verses which is described in one Puran, it is said that it is described by Markandeya to Bhagirath. So he says, O my dear king, one who offends a Vaishnava, he loses the results of all his pious activities, his opulence, his reputation, his sons, everybody gets destroyed. And then he says, whoever kills or blasphemes a Vaishnava, whoever is envious of a Vaishnava or angry with him, whoever does not offer obeisances to Vaishnava, or, now it is important, if somebody does not feel joy upon seeing a Vaishnava, this is important. This is what we can relate to. If somebody does not feel joy upon seeing a Vaishnava, certainly he falls into a hellish condition. So that is a very strong thing to understand, that if you are not happy seeing Vaishnavas, that is an offense. So we don't have to condemn Vaishnavas. We don't have to, speak ill of Vaishnavas, but we should not become upset seeing a Vaishnava. So therefore, when he says, King Rahugan says, please tell me, why are you wandering around like a dull man? Now, please explain, because you know all the yogic processes. You are speaking such wonderful words. I'm not able to understand all that. Please explain all these words. So therefore, after this, he says, you are master of all the yoga. You are the best of all the learned sages. You are, I think, the direct representative of Lord Kapila. So therefore he asks, are you wandering in disguise to examine the people of this world? I am a very attached person. I am attached to my family. I am attached to worldly activities. I am blind to spiritual knowledge. Please tell me, how can I advance in spiritual knowledge? So Prabhupada writes, one must be inquisitive like King Rahugana to know about the science of Krishna consciousness. Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyashru Shreya Tamaha. So then after, Rahugan, he surrenders to Jada Bharata. Rahugan now he replies to the various reply of Jada Bharata. He asks further questions. He says that, although the soul is different from the body, but still the soul appears to be fatigued when the body is fatigued. And he says, just like a milk, which is there, milk and rice, if it is kept in a pot and the pot is heated, the milk and the rice also gets heated. So please tell me, what is the actual constitutional position of the soul? And then he says that, okay, you asked that I should not punish a person who is even mad. But he says, but a position of the king is, although it may be temporary, but the duty is to correct and punish the disobedient citizens. And therefore, I am following the duty of a king. And then you said, what is the use of punishing a madman? Rahugan says, actually, punishment is not useless if one is engaged in one's duty as ordered by the Lord. And he says, actually, the king, he's engaged in his dharma of punishing the citizens if they are committing some sinful activity. He's engaged in worshipping the Lord and vanquishing. In this way, he vanquishes all his sins. So then after this, Jadbharati says, please be merciful to me. I am so much puffed up with false prestige because I am in the body of a king. So please, I pray that you glance upon me with mercy so that I can be free from the sins of neglecting a devotee. He says, you are a friend of the Lord. You are the friend of all the living entities. So therefore, there is no loss or gain for you due to my insult. You are not at loss, but actually I am at loss because I have offended a great devotee. I'll be destroyed. So please forgive me. Please be merciful to me and guide me. So with this chapter ends. So we'll stop here. So tomorrow we'll begin the next chapter. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. If anybody has any questions, they can ask. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.